Welcome to Distilled Security Podcast, episode 17. My name is Justin Leapline. I'm joined with Rick Yoakum and Joe Wynn. And we are still in the new studio here. No back wall yet, and everything. And we have a pretty interesting group of topics that I'm excited to dive into. But I want to tell you guys first, Joe and I realized that we're laptop twinsies, laptop twinsies.
All right.
Bought a new one last Monday unwillingly into this. So I got a travel story for you guys starting off. So last week I went to the PCI conference, which was pretty good. Content is, like always, it's run by the council. So it's pretty controlled of what they say.
Sure.
It's a conference of a standard with that. In fact, somebody I know that actually had a presentation, he had some jokes into there, and they axed it from the presentation.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, they're pretty controlling on that. Outside of that, people there, great. Saw old customers, saw new customers, relationships, old colleagues, and everything. So it was great for that. However, traveling on Monday down to Fort Worth, Texas was where the location was. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I got my duffel bag, my computer bag. I throw it in my trunk, in my car. And I actually took a couple boxes out of my trunk because I didn't want these boxes. I've been meaning to ship them, not sitting in the airport, all week and everything. And put them in my garage, start taking off the airport. I realized about 2 miles out, I never did shut my trunk into this. I found out it wasn't that long, and a lot of people are like, well, didn't you hear the window open? And it was like, I opened up the sunroof, into this. And they're like, well, what about the beeps? I was like, there was no beeps. No beeps from my car whatsoever.
Well, 2 miles happens fast, but it's a decent amount of distance to have to look for stuff.
So where it fell out was, not a lot of people know, it's a 2-lane going to eventually a 4-lane highway, 228, So I stopped at the light there and then pulled to make a right. And I turned around about a mile before I even got to Mars, into there. Came back. My computer bag is sprung over this. It is very apparent that several cars have run over my laptop backpack. My duffel bag is still MIA. Somebody took the clothes to it, I was like, a short fat guy. Who would want, clothes to a little short fat guy?
You have some nice sweatpants, though.
I guess so, But yeah, somebody took it, and those were gone. And I drove, when I realized, came back, I got my computer. My computer was kind of bent up like this, and my Beat headphones, I was able to fix them.
Okay.
But my other AirPods I brought, they're the AirPods are gone, but I have the charge case. I brought a camera, a nice 4K camera, and a microphone because I was going to do some content down at the hotel.
Right.
Totally smashed, just in pieces, into that.
From the fall or got hit
from
by
the
a
car.
truck?
Yeah, the car running over it. My backpack's kind of shredded. The only thing that survived is my 8-year-old iPad mini, which is so old it doesn't even get updates anymore from Apple. It's that old. However,
they don't build them like they used to.
That survived. There wasn't a single crack on it. I'm like, really, the one thing that I wouldn't mind replacing, survives. I came home in a rush. I packed, grabbed another duffel bag. I'm throwing cars in. Jen, at 5:30 in the morning, she's like, "What's going on here?"
Oh, right.
And I'm like, "I just got to pack real quick." And I'm throwing things as fast as I can in a bag. And then finally leave. And then I realized in Texas, I made a beeline to the Apple store to get a new laptop and everything. I realized I packed her jeans instead of mine. So I had one pair of jeans the entire week.
But they were cute.
Yeah.
Did you present?
I did not attempt to put them on because she and I are very different sizes, But then also, something I didn't realize was the duffel bag I grabbed was often one that I don't really I got a free one for ordering some clothes off website,
Sure.
So it's a cheesy little duffel bag.
Good for camping, huh?
That's what I use it for, So I use it for camping. So On the way back, coming from Fort Worth, I got pulled aside from the TSA. They're like, "Is there anything sharp in here?" I was like, "No, there's nothing sharp in here." Yeah, my pocket knife was left into there.
On the way back, though, not on the way out.
No, Pittsburgh just let it through. Yep, it totally went through the Pittsburgh airport, not a single thing. And the guy was like laughing about it. He's like, "Really?" He's like, "It's pretty apparent. It's right there on the edge." Because I put in the little, in some of the duffel bags, there's like the little inside zipper, that you can put stuff in.
Just for like one item or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it was in there. I didn't even know that like it was in there. About it. Like it was just in that little zipper thing. But yeah, so that was my week. I got a new laptop.
Yeah, but you got a new laptop.
I got a new laptop. I wasn't really looking for a new laptop.
Yeah.
It's a little faster, and that's about it. I did get a different color, though. I got the gray, the slate gray.
Oh, slate gray, yeah.
Yeah, so...
And Joe, why'd you get a new laptop?
So
not as exciting.
I'll tell you, I was going to this conference. It was PCI, and I forgot to shut the trunk of my car. And no, that's not what happened at all. I just needed a new laptop. My old one is old enough, and it would take forever to do things. And every time I'm about to go buy another,
Windows.
True, that too. I was thinking about getting a Mac, but ended up so. Every time I was going to go and order myself a new computer, somebody else's computer in the company just started going haywire or whatever. And I'm like, oh, go ahead and get one. Mine's still good enough. I'll wait.
Right.
And so I waited a little bit. And then finally I'm like, you know what? Just pulling the trigger. And then I found like HP. I like HPs. They kind of work for me. I found HP had this 70% deal or 60% off for 72-hour deal they were doing.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to pull the trigger. So it's a...
Through HP directly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yep. Got 32 gigs of RAM and terabyte hard drive and decent processor.
Here's the question. We weren't intending to talk about this. A lot of people ask me, like, well, what about all your files and, like all that? I'm like, yeah, that's all good. Like, it's same with you. Like,
Well, the only thing I would lose is I don't sync the download folder, but I also don't really clean the download folder out every time like something gets in there. And so there's probably hundreds of things in there that
but is that
but they're not I don't need them.
If it's important, you like file those.
Sometimes I think, you know what, I can find that in my downloads folder.
Right.
But I know that I can either go get it the source from wherever I downloaded it from. So every once in a while NIST is down, right?
Sure.
And I might have offline copies, but I always know that I can find a couple offline copies of 853
You'll see
or
your
171.
12th download of NIST CSF.
Right. Exactly. That's true. Yeah. Parenthesis 12.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but otherwise, my backup strategy, we should talk about backup strategy if we're going to talk about this, even though it wasn't on topic at all. My backup strategy is I sync everything right to OneDrive.
Yep.
And it's all going there. But then I also have iDrive, which is a backup tool that will take anything that's local, like my QuickBooks or Quicken, the local files like that, and it'll make a copy of that. And so that's pretty well preserved then.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have, for my files and everything, I use Dropbox. So any file that I care about is in that directory structure and, saved into there. And then, use so many SaaS tools nowadays. So like all my stuff in Notion is in Notion, type of thing. Like everything else is like, oh yeah, that's in a website. Like I don't need to save it, So like literally, and then like all the code, that's GitHub and all that stuff. So yeah, it was pretty minimal. The surprise that there was a couple of little side projects that it wasn't that important. If I lost it, it would have been whatever. But there was a couple of like little off things that I did initial coding to that was not synced to anything. I never checked it into GitHub. I plugged in an external monitor on my laptop and keyboard, and I was able to get all the files
Nice.
up. The actual device still worked even after running over with the car.
Your bent laptop.
My
still
bent
work.
laptop, yeah. I mean, the monitor, like even all this stuff, like I'll show you
That's
guys
kinda
after.
cool.
The whole thing is bent, but yeah, plugging a couple of devices in, it's like, yep, all right,
Yeah.
it still
So
works.
did you ever worry about what if the cloud service you're using, what if Dropbox has a problem or whatever else you're using and you can't get to it ever? Like I did that threat model and I have a little solution I use, but
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because my strategy is actually I have basically everything in a couple various OneDrives, and then like once, probably every 2 weeks, but sometimes it ends up being once a month. I just sync it all to an external drive.
No, do you?
Yeah, it's just
I should
easy.
probably do that. I mean, I have a number of files that are offline like mode, so they're on my laptop as well as that, but not all of it.
yeah, I'll do the offline mode and then
Yeah.
I'll point the iDrive backup, cloud backup to that folder and have it pull them.
Yeah, I've been thinking about like maybe doing like Time Machine, which is similar to what you're doing for the Mac, and hooking it up to the router. I just haven't done. I mean, Dropbox has been pretty reliable. It hasn't not been there when I needed it. You know? So
Famous last words.
yeah,
Yep.
I know. So
Third party risk management.
next
We'll get there.
podcast,
We'll get there.
you're gonna hear me crying. I was like, I should have.
Yeah. Or because now that everybody knows you use what is it, Dropbox?
Dropbox.
Yeah, that's where the next phishing email will come.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get a Dropbox, reset your password, or
That's a
something
good
like that. And
pretext.
I'm like, oh, I use Dropbox. I'll click on that.
Yeah, that must be me.
even worse. It's Justin's trying to share a file with me via Dropbox.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Highly targeted. I'll never share files with you guys.
Oh, okay,
FYI.
perfect.
Anyways, let's get on a little bit more pointed to topic. Our first thing that I wanted to address is New York DFS, Department of Financial Services. A few years ago, they came out with what's called like Part 500, their cybersecurity regulation, and it's interesting. There's multiple kind of variants to it. When it first came out, I remember like I had some clients, they mandated like 10 years worth of log retention.
Oh, it was a lot.
And
yeah.
it was like, what are you talking about? Like, who's going to pay for that storage? Are you kidding me? And then they rolled it back and all that stuff. There's a lot of particulars, into there. And they have it tiered both on how big the company is, both by employees and by revenue, into that. And then because they have a lot of complications into it, they rolled out requirements on a timetable and everything.
Right.
The reason why we're bringing this up now and a little bit of discussion is there's a few new ones on November 1st coming in trigger. They are, do you have that up in front of you?
MFA is one.
Yep.
Yep. Enhanced MFA.
I know. I had to really
Yeah.
research what enhanced meant, and it's not what I thought it would be.
No, not the RoboCop, enhanced, enhanced mode type of thing. And then also asset management.
Oh, inventories. That's right. That was
Yep.
the other one.
So, yeah, you're essentially, I mean, it doesn't call out CMDB, but it's essentially CMDB.
Yeah, you
know?
must implement written policies and procedures for maintaining a complete, accurate, documented inventory. So it's like the call out, the way I'm reading it, is you actually have to write a policy and procedure for the thing you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
formalize how you're managing the inventories.
Yeah. And technically, you could get away with spreadsheets into this.
You just need a document that talks about how you use the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
So that wouldn't be enhanced, though, but that doesn't apply. The enhanced doesn't apply
that's
that
the
one. That's
MFA enhanced. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on this, guys? Have you, first off, had any experience with New York DFS?
Minimal.
Minimal, yeah. Yeah, and it's also interesting, too, one of the things I learned about, like, dealing with this, it's not just, like, financial insurance companies. I heard of this one scenario where a retail store was given basically, like, pay later, thing. And because they did the pay later, that was looked at as a micro loan into that.
Oh, right.
They got roped into DFS because they did that for like a TV.
Yeah.
So it's like 4 payments of whatever, they're roped now into DFS because they do that.
Right. Yeah, I did a ton of it, but it was like a year ago, and I haven't really looked at it for the past
I mean,
year.
it hasn't changed.
Well, it's changing now.
Yeah. In fact, what was it? Was it last year? They did a second amendment to that.
Yeah, it was like earlier this year that went into effect, and then a few months later here, this one's going into effect. So enhanced MFA. So I had to really push the AI limits of asking it to define and keep looking for reasons for it to tell me what exactly is enhanced. And it just says what's a stricter version of the multi-factor authentication required. And what does that mean? Well, it applies to all users, not just admins or remote users. So that makes it enhanced, like it's everybody. And it does say that it requires stronger methods. So your SMS-based two-factor is not preferred, but it's okay if no better alternative exists.
It can be like accepted if you risk assess it.
Yeah, a lot of and I'd have to double check the regs. A lot can be accepted by the CISO.
Yeah, and I looked up some stuff on that too.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
So they give, if the CISO accepts it, they give some allowances where they can do that.
Yeah, they can accept it if it's a compensating control or a stronger control. But one of the things it says is that if a CISO doesn't exist at the organization, you can't even get the go for the compensating control. And so I was looking into that a little bit, and I found it interesting that you can use the reasonably equivalent or more secure compensating control if the CISO approves it. But what does it mean to be a CISO at one of these places? And I was like, what's the requirement? You can't just name anyone a CISO, but it doesn't say that anywhere in the rules. It really says you must be a qualified individual, but they don't define
Bob
qualified.
The janitor is out?
Well, I think he's out unless you can find a way to show that he has appropriate experience and expertise in cybersecurity. But what is that? And then be capable of designing, implementing, and managing the program. Okay, that's a little bit tougher. And then report to the board or senior management on cybersecurity risks. And so kind of looking at that, also understand regulatory compliance. So you look at that, and I couldn't find anything directly that went into all those details, but I think there were some notes. So there's like not in the thing, but DFS made their recommendation separately of what they define things are to be.
Yeah, there are some. They have issued some guidance and clarifications, and I think you're right that they have some notes on that one specifically. But I actually think it's interesting. Like with all the general counsels I've worked with in the past, you ask these questions and you go further and further because you're trying to explicitly, what can I do? What can't I do? What's allowed? What's not allowed? Help me draw the boundaries. And oftentimes I've found when I pull that thread far enough, eventually they go, oh, it's just reasonable person doctrine. And I go, what's that? And they go, well, would a reasonable person think that this thing is acceptable or not? And if you haven't experienced this in the enterprise for our lovely viewing audience, it ends up being one of the things that frustrates me the most often when we're talking about legal stuff is how ambiguous it is. And we always go, oh, how come they don't specify this or that or the other? And at the end of the day,
because the lawyers have to get paid at the end of the day.
Well, kind of, but really there's a lot of, if you try to define everything, you never get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so ultimately, all this stuff boils down to reasonable person doctrine. And so that's why you see use industry best practices or whatever. And although I am the first person to tell executives and boards, when they say, well, what are our benchmarks and all this stuff, right? I go, well, you're asking the wrong question. Just because your neighbor doesn't lock their house doesn't mean you can afford to not lock your house, right? But this is the one place where I know of a good exception for it, which is legally, to not be found negligent, you need to do roughly what your peers are doing. And so to the point about the CISO and reasonable person doctrine and all that stuff, it's well, if your CISO is reasonably as qualified as other peer organization CISOs, you're fine. And if they're not, you're not.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So they have to have a CISP. That's what I got out of this.
You got to have a CISP. Yeah.
It's not gonna. I guess not me.
Well, I did find. I'm trying to see if I have my notes here, but I think that it was called out in at least. I think it was using Copilot. So Copilot said doesn't require them to have a degree or a certification in cybersecurity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are, again, it's like very few hard requirements other than is it reasonable to experts in the field? And when it really comes down to it, if someone was like, if you had an expert witness in cybersecurity, like one of us or whatever, testifying, is this person, do they seem like a qualified CISO? You'd want one of us to be like, yeah, that seems fine.
Yeah.
So even having the title, how do I want to answer this? I've seen organizations who had people with the title of CISO who seem like they should be doing all the right things, but under oath, I don't know if I could answer that they are.
That's fair. Yeah, I agree and share that experience.
So in August...
Well, you're talking about that on paper they look qualified, but they're not. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's... How do you prove that, outside of seeing their program and, the fruit of that? And even if that, there's a lot of variables into there. Like, are they properly funded? Do they have the right people underneath them? Do they have control over firing, their people? I've met some people who are like, yeah, they've been with the company 20 years. There's no way I can fire them,
Yeah.
And they're just coasting,
Well, and then it's like, no, they're good and their intent is good, but they're not allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
Are you a good CISO or not? It's like, oh, that's a tough one to answer.
And plus, I mean, we had this conversation a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
Where it's like security doesn't really own anything. I can be yelling at the moon that, patches aren't being applied, but, at the end of the day, it's not my job role to patch, at there. So what are you going to do?
And it's not your job role to accept the risk that you presented about what could go wrong if they're not patching.
It's advising.
One of the things I do like about DFS, though, I mean, there's a lot of kind of regulatory mess into it, but they have to report up to the to DFS once a year and everything. And one of the things that they have to attest to is whether they have enough resources to execute on all this. It actually has to be in the report. Into that. Now, you could argue that's kind of a catch-22. Like, are you actually going to admit that in a report that's going to be reviewed by senior management and legal? Like,
well, but if
you put it in the report, they're like, this isn't going out the door.
Well, there's some truth to that, but like, there's a long tail effect to that as well, right? Because if you then have a security incident, which is also reportable to NYDFS, and it's related to a issue that you reasonably knew about before, now you're in a world of hurt. So the organizations that I worked with on this before, a lot of them were actually, I would say, more forthcoming than I've seen in other regulatory schemes, because they didn't want to not cover a potential risk scenario in year one. And then if something bad happened in year two, they knew that the hammer was really going to come down. So they typically would self-report as a self-preservation technique, which I think from an oversight perspective is actually the ecosystem you kind of want to set up. You want people to be telling you what's wrong. You just need to be careful with how hard you hit that hammer.
Yeah,
in the first
exactly.
part.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can actually, you have leverage there.
Yeah.
Because if you ask for, 3 extra people 3 years in a row and you keep getting a no, all of a sudden you have a difficult conversation with, senior management. You're like, how can I answer this in good conscience, that, I've asked for staffing and still no, type of thing.
Yeah.
But at the end, who's going to answer that we're not getting sufficient? Like, that won't go out the door,
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I've seen versions of that.
Yeah.
Because again, the way that NYDFS has it set up is, and this was a bit of a mess in year one, because at first only like lawyers had access to the NYDFS portals.
The portal, yeah.
And the CISO, and they would only give one login per organization. So typically that would go to like general counsel because you're interacting with a regulator. So CISOs was like, hey, you're asking me to tell you things, but we don't have any other logins? Like, how do you actually want us to do it? So they've figured all that out and cleaned it up. But because it's the CISO attesting to it themselves, there's what I've seen is a good amount of honesty, but it's certainly in collaboration with general counsel, and the organizations I've worked with have done a really good job in that collaboration and getting way in front of what might be a reportable issue, so it isn't actually reportable by the time they get there. It's almost like the thing we were talking about in the last podcast where you're like, hey, the bus is coming, right? I'd much rather, I'd much rather you not be in front of that bus, but if it comes down to it,
yeah, I'm stepping out of the way.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in August 2025, just a few months ago, there was.
You're looking up the same thing I am.
Oh yeah. I saw that earlier. Yeah, there was a New York-based dental insurance and management company, and they specialized in both government-funded and commercial dental programs.
Yeah,
and they ended up having we'll call it a consent decree, so a settlement, aka a fine, for $2 million for failing to implement multi-factor authentication, lacking
and
a data.
They said they did.
Right, and lacking a data retention policy, delaying breach notification, falsely certifying compliance with cybersecurity regulations, and all in violation with the Part 500.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to find out, does this company have a CISO? Oh. And I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find.
They have to have somebody designated in that spot.
Right. They do have chief compliance officer and some other people with those C levels. I could not find a CISO titled person there. And maybe I just didn't find it, but I couldn't find one.
Think they got axed right after this?
Well, I just don't think they had one at the time of the breach either. And so somebody else was acting as, how did you say it? Had to be appointed. Somebody else had to be appointed to that responsibility, even without that title. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and again, I'll say a lot of those the big fines, in my experience, have been related to people that say one thing to the regulators, and then the reality is a different thing. I've seen a couple times, and I would not advise anyone rely on this too heavily, but I've seen a couple times where, again, people self-report some issues, and as long as you report that alongside your plans for fixing those issues in a reasonable manner, you can get a little bit of grace.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the things I before we close out this topic here, now I can't find it, the multi-factor. Talk amongst yourselves, guys. Well, it's not like we're live or anything like that. Here it is. Starting on November 1st, 2025, a covered entity will be required to use MFA for any individual accessing any information systems of the covered entity, regardless of the location, type of user, type of information contained on the information system being accessed, unless the covered entity has a CISO that approves in writing the use of reasonable, equivalent, or more secure ComSec controls. So basically, it's like you need MFA everywhere.
All right. That's how I'm taking it.
That is exactly right.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal. I actually did a few consulting engagements where they were saying like, well, some systems don't do this. And it's like, well, you can go through some type of a portal.
Yeah, put a gate in front of it.
Yeah, exactly. But, a lot of times, that could lead to disaster recovery issues, because you have to think about, like, if your gateway is going through and that's down, then all of a sudden, like, there's a whole bunch of systems and it's in general, even with two-factor, like if you implement it within the GINA or the login screen, you still could potentially have issues if it's checking that multi-factor somewhere else.
Right. Well, and to some extent, it's like, well, some systems just don't do it. It's like, be honest, are these current systems?
Right.
Are these systems we've self-developed 10 years ago?
Are, notorious. Like you need a six-figure package from IBM to maybe support it or maybe not, Thing. So, yeah.
But I think this will drive, honestly, and maybe it's part of the intent, is to drive some modernization. But I actually...
Do you agree with this?
I do. I
Multi-factor everywhere?
Yeah, I think I do. Because, like, how many times do we see, like a 0 day that then allows lateral movement and whatever. Like this is just like, no, you have to lock every door and every window.
But I guess it comes down to potentially how they define multi-factor. Like if they do some type of device signature and authentication,
like cert based or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Passkeys.
Yeah.
Well, so passkeys are one thing, but like if they have like the device is actually a authentication measure, but that wouldn't
Like
prevent
MAC address registration or
No,
something?
no. Like it would be some type of signature.
Okay.
Like certificate based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is if I have malware that I clicked on, that one factor doesn't matter because I'm still coming from that device. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, that's...
And if I'm typing in passwords, I'm going to be able to scrape those off too. So you say like there is some protection, but like it could be defeated.
Yeah, but there's no such thing as like perfect protection anyway.
Yeah.
So I do
guess.
like the fact that it's sort of like, oh yeah, no one's ever paid attention to this trash can emptying scheduling server or whatever. And therefore we never secured it the way that, in equivalency with all these other things. And oh, by the way, we had this, remote access Trojan hanging out on the system for the past, X years, and eventually it got invoked. Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, and I think that's why when I saw the part about if you want to do a compensating control or you want to do something else, you really need somebody qualified. And their way of saying qualified is that CISO type position who could say, all right, well, this is a reasonable alternative.
Right.
And then create a risk assessment around it and be able to make it defendable.
Yeah.
And it's also independent from the operational side, where they would potentially whitewash,
and
have a conflict of interest, whereas the CISO would be like, well, my butt is on the line. Like,
right.
Up there. Like I'm not going to just blanket sign on anything here.
I need a really good reason to sign my name
really good
off.
raise. No,
Yeah.
Yeah. So takeaways. My first takeaway is, hey, if you're one of the covered companies, make sure that November 1st requirements, you're
ready to go.
Pretty much ready to go by now. And the other one is if you're a CISO at a company that's in their scope, in a New York DFS scope, you need to think about what you're going to do if leadership won't actually fund or give you those resources, because it might just be time to start looking.
Right.
Yeah, and those are compensation. I like the premise of it that it's reportable, so it forces to have those conversations, whereas in typical organizations, it would be the CISO presenting the budget to whomever they report to, and they're like, nah, you need to cut 15% off this, or all that stuff. Now there's like more of a active conversation into this, and not saying that they could, not cut, like that would be unreasonable too, but it allows the conversation like, okay, are we still good by doing this?
Yeah, here's the risk assessment of that reduced funding. So what probability or impact goes up, and where am I memorializing that? I got to speak. And then who besides the CISO does the CISO go to that says, you know what, we can cut that 15%, but I need to do a risk assessment and I need you to sign off on this being acceptable. And then only then can I feel comfortable going and say that we're managing the risk around this when I go online to the DFS and do my report.
Yeah.
And hopefully that gets you we'll go look for that 15% elsewhere.
The formality and the attention, I think, definitely drives activity.
Great.
Yeah.
Done?
Yeah.
Done?
Done.
All right. Next topic I wanted to talk about here. So we're venturing into the next couple of topics, third-party risk management here. One of the things, and I actually just had a conversation this week, I had, through a customer, acquaintance, all that stuff, they are a donation company. They help hospitals and other various places raise money, into this. They're asked by the hospital system that they were working with that they need to be high trust certified. They're not getting APHI, anything like that. But and it was in the intros of conversation, my advice to them is you need to get somebody common sense on the phone. It's like, let's talk about the level of service you're doing, how minimal it is. Do they have alternate stuff, because that's very expensive, especially for I think it was a 15-person company or something like that, like kind of ridiculous. And especially for the service that they were performing, like don't send me PHI and we're good,
right.
Type of thing. So the whole topic and bring up this premise is negotiating security, especially, I've seen this more from a small to mid-size going up to a large.
Yeah.
Where have you guys seen successes into that? Overzealous, provisioning, where they're like, yeah, we need you to secure like Fort Knox. And it's like, what? Like, I got a funny story. A lot of times, I work with bigger clients.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you need like X amount of insurance. And I have insurance, I think I have up to like 5 million or something like that now. It's a lot for a single consultant that doesn't have access to their systems.
Right.
Like I have an email account, I have, Teams account, but like no configuration, no admin, nothing like that. I'm like, guys, like, I don't think I can cause $5 million worth of damage. Like, are you kidding me? Type of thing. And oftentimes I'll get away with the, yeah, you're small. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Not my stature, but the size of my company.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about that is like when CMMC was just starting to brew in terms of like overzealous enforcement, because the really big defense contractors, the Boeings of the world type people, they would just go, well, this is coming, so we're just going to require all of our suppliers to be CMMC compliant, right? Before the contracts had any data notation.
Yeah, back when it was the last version of CMMC.
Right. And it's the perfect conversation for like negotiating security though, because they were just like, oh, everyone has to do this, go do this. You can't get formally certified yet, but you need to attest to us that you are. And my conversation with them was always like, well, you need to push back. Like the clients that I'd work with, you need to push back. And they'd be like, well, I don't know how we can. And they're our biggest, customer and all this. I was like, yeah, but if you try to do this without any clarifications, you're going to be doing a disservice on both sides of the coin, because they shouldn't have to monitor your compliance if there's no need for you to be compliant in the first place. They have thousands of other clients they need to monitor compliance for. You're wasting their time too.
I make screws, for something.
Yeah, you're wasting their time too. And you don't even know what the scope of this thing is, right? Like CMMC notoriously is a follow the data type, assessment. And so, well, none of that's scoped right now. So how could you even attest to the fact that you are or are not? You could say, well, we're thinking about it, and if in the future you give us a contract that has some of this stuff in it, here's how we'll deal with it. That's fine. But you can't really tell them, yeah, I promise I have all this stuff in place right now, because you don't know how it's going to hit.
Just go off 171 with the definition of CUI there? Is that
pretty much?
Yeah. More or less.
They were expecting what they were pushing on was really getting serious. I saw a lot of smaller organizations who were serving primes to the DoD.
Yep.
Or is it DOW now?
Oh.
And
yes, one of those.
Yes, and they were doing exactly what you said. Somebody in their third-party vendor risk management program was saying, go and tell everybody they need to do this. We need them to get their SPURS system all updated with all their scoring. Now, some of that was way pre-CMMC.
Yeah.
But since, for the last 10 years, they were supposed to be doing certain things anyway.
Yeah.
And following NIST 171. So those were all supposed to be in there. And so they were just starting to push their people to do that. Now, were they, when the conversations I've had, it's, well, are they going to just discontinue your contract if you don't get this done in a reasonable amount of time? No, it really wasn't the case. They weren't worried about losing the contract. But what I was worried for them was, well, now wait, what if you somehow get selected for a review, and there were constantly reviews going on, just didn't have a lot of, the government didn't have a lot of manpower to do it. And you didn't
and you're not compliant.
You didn't have your SPURS number in there.
Right.
You didn't do any of this stuff, and so that was some of the thing that I was seeing.
But a lot of it, what I found was those big primes, they would say, well, we don't really have the time or the resource on our end to figure out who's actually going to have CUI or not. Just make all of our suppliers do this, right? Like that happened.
Which is scary in and of itself.
It happened, a lot, a lot. And so, but so the negotiating the security side of it is like, hey, does this apply to us? How does this actually apply to us? If you guys got this information, how would you send it to us? Like, would it be in a zip file that goes to one of our salespeople that has all the engineering drawings in it? Or would it be like later on when we get CAD drawings because we need to build certain screws for you or whatever? Like all that actual tactical, like workflow stuff, business process stuff really mattered. And I saw great success having those conversations because the vendor teams typically were like, yeah, we would actually love to scope you out because we sent this to every single one of our suppliers.
Right.
So we'd much rather have one less of these if you come to us with a reasonable description of why you don't think it applies and what you'll do if it ends up applying. Yeah, they were more than happy to scope people out of those assessments typically.
Okay.
But it was the suppliers themselves where I would get resistance. They'd be like, well, we can't possibly tell our biggest client that we can't do it. It's like, no. It's not that you can't do it. It's that neither of you actually want to do this.
Or should.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Now, that makes a lot of sense. At first, when you started to talk about how it was going down and it wasn't quite following where you were going with it, but I really love where you ended up. And that's that, if... just have the meaningful conversation because if it doesn't make sense, you're just wasting everybody's time, and that's a lot of money.
Well, and you're wasting everybody's time, even if it's a clean assessment. If you have a couple bumps or whatever, well, now you're talking about those things, and you're having clarifying, calls, and why does this evidence look like this, and this isn't what we're using. It's like none of that's needed. Why are you doing any of this?
Yep.
Yeah. So getting the reasonable person on the phone, exactly what you said at the beginning of this, that is crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure, every company has a workaround process.
Right.
Nothing's that rigid. Even when they're like, I see it more, not necessarily on the high trust side, but like, give me your SOC 2 or ISO certification. Like that's their blanket. Hi, Mr. Vendor, now give us your outside attested certification.
Who's asking that question?
Procurement, probably.
And where are they getting the way to ask that question?
From a form?
From a form.
Yeah.
And where'd that form come from? Some probably security team.
Oh, yeah.
And so all of a sudden, just 20 minutes ago, we were talking about competent people with the skill sets to do a job. And now we're asking procurement who may not really be a security engineer to go ask security questions. And do they have access? So what I've seen is, your procurement person is asking these questions, and it's probably not even a senior procurement person who's sending it out. And sometimes it's sent out through an automated system, and you're the recipient of this.
Yep.
Who are you even going to talk to in order to start the negotiation process? And then when you do, you end up talking to somebody at procurement who is saying, well, do you have a SOC 2? Well, here, I'll show you one, and shoot them over Microsoft. Yeah. I was going with Azure. You're going to AWS. Yep. So we'll send them over GCP's SOC 2, and they get it. Well, are they just checking the box because they said, oh, I need a SOC 2. You gave me a SOC 2.
Yeah, right.
All right, check the box. So
I had one client. It was for a PCI engagement, and they asked for a SOC 2 for their data center.
Yep.
And they collected it, and of course, I opened it up. It had all the controls in it were deleted. Like it just had the description of the environment, the top part of the SOC 2.
Description.
Yeah, and then all the controls they tested and the results of those controls were just deleted.
They should have bought a SOC 3.
And I was like, guys, like you realize like there's more to this report,
right?
And they're like, oh, really? No, I didn't realize that. And then we got them on the phone. They're like, we consider the controls sensitive. I'm like, yeah, they failed some controls. Like nobody, like you guys SOC 2 to release it out to people, not to keep it in house.
Right.
Yeah. My favorite part to read is that table at the end and skim through it at first and just look for all the
is anything
the
red?
exceptions.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing notable or whatever, all the stuff and everything. Yeah, it was funny, but you get that all the time, into there. I had something in the financial industry when I worked at Diebold. We had this big bank, and I'll leave it at that. And they were big enough that warranted an on-site assessment, for this. We prepped for it on-site, had a number of SMEs, coming in, attesting to this. We come to find out, they asked her, on your ATMs, do you encrypt the data? Because a lot of people don't know there's an electronic journal file on ATMs that store a lot of the card data and the track and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't know. Do you pay for that module? Because we sell it, that you can encrypt it. But
it's like an optional add-on.
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, do you pay for it? They're like, I don't know. I was like, okay, well, that's the answer. If you pay for it, then. And then we come to find out a little bit more. All we were doing for them, we didn't handle any data for them, except for they sent us alarm codes on the ATM. So printer jammed or some type of sensor malfunction, so that we would get the alarm codes and then send out a tech automatically. They're like, well, are you handling our sensitive data? I was like, we're literally just getting alarm codes from you. Everything else is you purchased an ATM. They're like, that's it. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, why are we here?
Right.
I was like, I don't know.
Right. You called this meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't call you to come audit me, type of thing. But yeah, it goes into not even some of the third party risk management people know the full scope of service,
right.
A lot of the time. They're just following you're a critical vendor, so give us the world, type of thing.
Right. Oh, talk about the negotiation there, huh?
Yeah, right.
Did you at least get dinner out of it?
No, we paid for it.
No, that's right.
You're
the vendor.
Yeah.
I was on the other side of that type of conversation recently, where there's a big project for an organization I'm working with, and I'm responsible for making sure that the security stuff's going to go well, and it's all this operational and mechanical stuff. And we're working with a partner, and I'm like, okay, I need to assess what the partner is doing to make sure that their security is going to be okay and equivalent to ours, and so on and so forth. And we get on the call, and I start asking questions, and they're like, well, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the contract says this. Oh, you must have had an old version, right? We scoped this stuff out to someone else. But basically all the stuff that you're worried about, you decided to do yourself as an organization. And it's just these couple little things that we're going to be doing. And I the same things oh, I guess we're done here then.
Yeah.
15 minutes into a hour-long conversation, oh, great. And frankly, I couldn't have been happier, because there was this whole host of work that I thought I was going to have to do, even if all the answers were good in terms of memorializing it and all that stuff.
You're one of those guys that actually opens the SOC 2 report.
I try to. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, the palpable relief on the other side of that table when someone comes to me and is like, I don't think we need to do any of this stuff that you're asking about. And reasonable conversation, done. Everybody's happy.
So, I think that's the biggest takeaway, from this conversation is don't take it as set in stone, whatever they're asking. You know, it's negotiable, into that. Ask them for alternative processes, give them a clear description of the service, because oftentimes they might not have a clear, thing. And even if it is in depth, you are handling data, there may be ways around it,
right?
Type of thing. Anything else? Yeah.
I would just add one little thing is culturally though, know who you're working with, because I'm currently working with individuals kind of around the world, and I can tell you the negotiation tactics for individuals, say in the Middle East, are very different than say Canada. And those are very different than, say, the UK. So, although...
Can you give a for example? How?
So, for example, often in the Middle East, the individuals on the other side of the table are tasked with showing their manager's victory in some way, shape, or form.
So you have to give them something?
You have to give them something.
Gotcha.
So, you can often negotiate your way out of this stuff, but you might say, oh, well... It's not necessarily, but you work with your commercial arm to be but we can cut 0.01% off of the thing. So they still get something in every interaction.
Gotcha.
Because that's just a part of work culture. And again, these are generalizations, not ultimates.
Yeah.
But the experience I've had in that is like, that's, if you don't go in with that, then they're like, well, why would I budge then? Right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point and everything. I haven't had to work a lot with the Middle East, but I'm wondering if there's a correlation with a lot of like bartering, bartering type,
absolutely.
cultures versus America. Here we don't barter all that much.
Yeah, very little. Well,
unless you count like eBay or something like that. I don't know if that's counted. I've been to like face to face.
Right. Well, and Asia's another example. Like, if you show up very respectfully and you interact what we as Americans, I think, would think is overly respectful, right?
I have the same impression.
Yeah. Right. So if you go into it that way, again, you'll end up in the reasonable outcome, but just know who you're working with culturally because it can make a difference. And if you kind of take the form of the conversation in the right way, I've not yet hit a culture where you don't get to that, get the reasonable person on the call and you'll get to the right outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are we going to maybe talk a little bit about the value or the worth or the worthlessness?
Before we get into that, I thought this would be a good segue to what we're drinking.
Absolutely.
Highly worthy.
So we broke off here. It's not a bourbon. We've done Scotch before.
Yeah.
So it's not like we've totally broken off, but it's called Distilled Security for a reason, even though we favor a lot of the bourbon side of things. This is a Mezcal.
I'm still good.
Nope.
Top me off. Perfect.
It's called One of Us, which sounds very cultish, I thought,
I'll join this cult.
Yeah. I just feel like somebody should be chanting it.
One of us.
Oh, it's so tasty.
Yeah, so it's aged 10 to 14-year-old, and I'm not a huge Mezcal person from a knowledge standpoint, but it's 10 to 14-year-old Maguey,
I think.
Which is what I think Mezcal is made out of. But anyway, so this is very, I wouldn't say exclusive, but, it wouldn't be the bottom shelf Mezcal that you're looking for. I found it online. I follow a few sites that actually recommend certain bottles, and this is a newer one that came out, and it is delicious.
Super good.
If you haven't had a Mezcal before, it's a little bit smoky. It's actually really interesting how they make it. They basically put all this stuff and put like little fires and then put it dirt over it and let it like smoke, into this.
And the old processors are like roll big stone wheels over them and stuff. It's neat.
Yep. Yeah, so it's really interesting, the old-fashioned way of actually, like, well, I say old-fashioned, there's a lot of places still making it like this. But it has a good, like, smoky flavor, into it. This one, because of the age, it's super smooth. Like, you get smoke on the back end, but at the sip, it's very easy to just...
What's the ABV?
Oh, that's a great question. 200 now.
Because it is shockingly
90.
smooth. All right, yeah.
Yeah, 45% alcohol.
Yeah. Really, really good, though.
Yeah,
it's delicious.
So, yeah, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So, now segueing into third-party risk management. Unpopular opinion, third-party risk management is worthless. And I think I probably have the closest opinion, even though I'm not, we say that worthless because it's a good little, catch line, clickbait, all that stuff. But I'm probably the closest to this as an opinion. I think if you follow a few rules to live by and use more popular vendors or bigger vendors or at least more solidified vendors, that you can largely get rid of third-party risk management outside of it's required, you can't really do this, but we're talking about like the worth of it. So going through, doing questionnaires, grabbing SOC 2s, ISO reports, is it worth it?
Man, I'm so torn because on the one hand, I think, how many legitimate programmatic decisions have I made or seen made based on the results of third-party risk management program? And I've been party to and on the receiving end and managing quite a few. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a 0.01 or 0.02% of all the ones I've ever done. There have been a couple.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably count on my one hand.
Yeah, exactly.
The number
Same
that I
with
said
me.
no to.
Right.
Yes.
But it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And convince leadership that no was the right answer.
Right. But then if I think about like not having it, I go, oh, that doesn't feel right at all.
Yeah, I mean, there have been ones we've done assessments on, and somehow they got through on the initial, but we find out they're egregious, and we shut them down immediately.
Yeah.
Again, on one hand, type of thing. But there are other ones that I guess it would be counted as that. Like we were reviewing a new HR system for a 100-person company and everything.
Yeah.
And somebody found a new flashy SaaS tool that looked like it was cool. I was like, cool, guys, can you give me any like attestations or can you fill out this questionnaire? And I sent them a SIG Lite. They're like, we're not filling this out. And I'm like, then we're done here. Like we're giving you all our employee data, social security number, all this stuff, and you're not giving me anything, know? They're like, yeah, that's correct. I was like, okay.
Now, one other thought I have is I guess I can count on two hands the number of times I've been able to equip our procurement teams with some data on things that felt not great from a security perspective to like aid negotiations and getting a better price.
Yeah, that's true.
But ultimately, again, 15 or less in 20 plus years of third-party risk assessments.
Yeah, one time more than one time I ended up doing that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, look, here's really where they need to work on it. And it was such a like pet project, but a very important project to a very top exec. So my job, as well as running cybersecurity, information security, business continuity, became coaching this company
helping
for
them
a
get
very
better.
long time on a continuous improvement process to get to where they needed to be. So
Yep.
I became, I
Chief
guess,
consultant.
their VCISO
Yeah.
before
Oh, wow.
VCISO was even a
Did
thing.
that exec have a stake in the company?
No, they didn't. Unfortunately, neither did I. So, but this company got a lot of maturity advice and made their stuff better because our company that I worked for at the time wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What do you think, Joe? Worthless?
Yeah.
As worth?
I think it can be totally worthless if not done right for many reasons. I like to think of the workflow. And so I'm thinking of like what makes this something worth doing. When should security even be in the process of the whole thing? And I'm going through this right now with more than one customer. And one of the things that we see is that the data or the requests come in, and then there's instead of saying, well, let's make sure we're doing a very thorough risk assessment and find out what's meaningful.
Yeah.
It's a speed to get things done. And so when your security team is challenged to get it done fast, what's going to happen? You're going to end up more on the worthless side because you don't have the resources or time committed to being able to say, well, where does this fit in?
Well, and is this because like the business has a roadmap and a plan on implementation, and then, security is doing the assessment and we've allotted the minimum or the median amount of time for that assessment. So when you hit a question, now it's going to delay the roadmap timelines?
Well,
is it that kind of thing?
I think you're being
Security
very
got brought in at the 11th hour.
that too. I think you're being very generous to say that there was even so that's why I'm thinking workflow and process. And a lot of organizations aren't even built out to a point where you build the SLAs to say security. So security had absolutely. So by the time security got it, everybody wanted it a month ago. And now when do you get this done? Can we use it? Daily reminders, daily questions. Can we get this done? Are you done reviewing it? Well, no, this is pretty significant.
So quite literally when you started, you were already late.
Yes. When you got the request, somebody at another level already wanted it done. So thinking about workflow. So what's really important is, yes, this could be totally worthless because the people who are already overworked are being asked to quickly go through the process and get it done. And so then what happens? Well, they're going to succumb to the pressure, look at it. They might even be the ones who are like, well, what am I looking at here? Can I find anything? And what I like to do is say, well, who else needs to approve this? And where's it going to go next? So I like to look at the workflow. And something that I worked with in a company where it became a very successful program years ago was myself and the law department got together. And that contract attorney, she was great. She really pushed for saying, procurement, why does the company even want this? And even before that, it's somebody requested it, and it goes from that somebody to their boss at the budget level to say, should this even be purchased? Because I've been in scenarios where we did a bunch of reviews, talked to the company, got their data, did risk assessments of the stuff, just to have it later be their boss said, we don't have budget for that. Why did I get a security review before you could have already declined it within a moment's notice?
I've seen that a lot lately.
Okay,
totally
good.
Agree.
So so here's my ideal workflow, just to kind of run it through, is I love it to go from requester to budget owner in that requester's department.
Yep.
And then from there to procurement to say, are they even going to shut it down? And then from there, it could go a couple ways. I like to see it go to probably to like an enterprise architect layer to say, does this even fit into the company? This is larger organizations that'll have that.
Yeah, and where are you looking at the deduplication? Is that at the architect layer?
Yeah, typically.
Well, procurement to
They
say...
requested 3 of the same SaaS,
Right.
players,
Procurement
like
to
AI.
say, do we already have an approved solution for this that's in the list of things? And if yes, then go have that conversation. Why are we going to buy a one-off unless procurement...
We already have Copilot. Why are we buying ChatGPT?
Dude, it's so funny you're saying this. I'm working literally on a ton of AI governance right now, and it's exactly the flow that you're talking about. It's exactly like the flow that we're building, and your examples are absolutely...
So after a procurement says it, they don't have anything, or it's okay, or the use case makes sense, then it goes to enterprise architecture to say, is this even going to fit into the model? Is it going to interface with the things, or is it going to accept the flows? Is it going to put out the flows?
You're asking for GCP, and we only have Azure tenants. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. And then after that, before it gets to security, I like to go to legal privacy first, because I want them to take a look at it and say, will this actually work within the privacy policies and the GDPR, the CCPA, whatever else we have to do? Will it even work there? And that's usually a pretty quick yes or no, because they can look at a few things, understand it a whole lot faster. All those steps seem to happen with a lot less rigor needed. Maybe the enterprise architecture needs a little bit more than the security team getting it and doing what is industry standard, to go back to what we talked about earlier, the reasonable security review. And what I've seen by putting those steps in place is that the security team, if they wouldn't have needed it, would either be so far behind or would need to add multiple people to be able to keep up with the demand. But they filtered so many out before it got to them.
That's such a cool point, though, because a lot of these other teams are figuring out, how can this be done right? The security team is figuring out, what are all the things that could go wrong? Right? And that just naturally takes a lot longer, because on the one hand, you're figuring out, like, well, what's a path that could work? It's a satisfier conversation, and the other half is the security thing. So that's really cool, actually.
And I think legal
work it
has
that way
aspect as well. I mean, that's why they're putting all
There's a lot of risk assessment and
all that stuff and everything.
No, and that's why the legal I was with said they don't even want to look at they're not even going to review the contract till security is done, and it can't go to security till it does these other steps.
I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not like 100% rigid process and everything. Like, I'm thinking if marketing needs a tool, and there's always exceptions to it, or something like that, but 3 people need a tool in marketing, like going through that rigid of a process might not.
No, maybe start with privacy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in that case,
use that.
Right.
But it could potentially, like, you get Adobe and get Adobe Cloud, and now you're storing stuff in another cloud provider and all that stuff, and everything, even though it might just be marketing markups, know, or something like that. But But so you talked about a flow that I really, really like, but that flow seems to be in the context of there is value to third-party risk assessments.
Well, it's worthless unless you're actually putting the time to do the right flow.
Right. All right.
That was my point.
Well, and the examples you gave before too, where you're already late, it seems like there's an inherent assumption that this thing's just going to sail through. And so even when I think about even financial fraud and all that stuff, that's the perfect storm of executive pressure, no time to do something, all these things that have people do historically where people have made bad decisions for organizations. So making sure you don't put the security organization in that place, I think is a huge point.
Yeah, it's something I built a long time ago at a company, and then I try to do it at customers where it makes sense. I call it the security management framework. I think I might have mentioned it here last year. And really what it is just a process inventory of all the things, how much time it takes to do the process, and being able to normalize that across everything that your security team has to do. You can even do it on the if you have if you're big enough, and a couple of companies I'm talking to have a dedicated third-party risk management set of the cybersecurity group. And when they're doing this, the most effective ones are the ones that have had, here's our SLA. We need this many days to do a review. If you get it into us by this day, we'll get our stuff done by this day, given that your vendor is responsive. Otherwise, our work starts when we actually get the information.
Right.
And so on and so forth. And so by putting that workflow together, communicating it, and even publishing we published a one-page, easy to read, almost, it wasn't quite an infographic, but I wish it would have been, of what gets your vendor approved.
Oh, nice.
And being able to workflow that out and just show people.
Well, and another point I think we touched on a little bit before that you made that I loved was that there's probably some value from a legal defensibility perspective too, right? In terms of vendor reviews.
Yeah. We were talking about that before the cast here. And
so it's just CYA.
Sometimes
there can be value in that.
Yeah. A little. I guess I'm looking at it as are you going to discover something that's actually going to be materially, affect the decision,
Well, but what you might do is discover something. You might not affect the decision, but you might affect your implementation or the compensating controls you put around certain things.
Yeah, but that's more into how you're putting it in. That wouldn't come out on a standard vendor review. That might actually go into more of the implementation. So,
well, I don't know.
A good example is I'm measuring Salesforce, and I'm setting up a thing do you patch? Do you protect from malware? Do you do this, that? But when I'm implementing Salesforce, now we're looking at, do we integrate our or do we integrate our authentication systems with Salesforce, get SSO in place? How are we doing backups? Are we can control the backups? How are we controlling encryption keys? Do we control that? That wouldn't go through a standard vendor review.
What? So I think there are things that might though. So if you're thinking CIA type stuff, right? And you hit the availability stuff from a vendor review or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. And then you find out that you don't love their backup rigor, but you were thinking that you were just going to rely on them for certain things.
4 nines instead of 5 nines.
Whatever it is, whatever the reason is, right? It could absolutely impact how you architect the solution or the integrations with them, or even if you don't love kind of their security models and modes in general, you'd be we were initially thinking just send them this entire table in this database, but they kind of stink a little more than we had hoped. So these 2 columns, they don't technically need. So we're going to take an extra step up front during ETL processes or integration processes to cut those out.
I mean, you should do that anyway.
You should do that anyway. But sometimes you build for the future and you go, we're thinking we're going to use them for this use case now. We might use them for 3 more in the future. And you go, actually, no, you can't do that because we can never send them that there. Yeah. So I don't know that it's hugely common, but I can see times where the results impact mitigating controls. And it gets back to the CYA stuff, right? Because you go, we did learn during vendor reviews that they weren't doing these things particularly well. Here's the activities we did to try and mitigate the damage that sort of thing might cause if it went awry. And now, even if it does go awry, you've had all the conversations.
Well, that's where I like to pick it up from. I like to look at it and say, all right, it's 2 years after we signed this contract that nobody's thought about it again. It was significant enough that it did go through the annual, critical vendors. So we looked at them again every year. We asked them all the questions. Are you doing all these things? We looked at all the evidence we could get. It looked pretty good. How many times has somebody been SOC 2 compliant, PCI certified, XYZ, and suffered a data breach that breached the information? So let's look at that.
Well,
so your customer, or say the customer of mine, is giving me their data.
Right.
They're entrusting that to me. They don't know who I'm giving it to, but in order to process it, to do the job that I promised them, I'm now sending it out to this vendor. This vendor passed all the security reviews, and on top of that, that vendor ended up taking the data, doing their processing of it, got breached.
Yep.
They got breached, and my customers coming to me and saying, all right, you're getting sued. The FTC's coming to me saying you're getting sued, or we're investigating you. The regulators are at your door. Now, we're in defense mode.
Yep.
What are we going to try to do? We're going to say, well, we're as much of a victim as my customer, because we were under the impression, after doing our reviews, we looked at what they told us. What they told us made sense. It was all reasonable.
Yep.
And what would you say earlier? It's the reasonable...
reasonable person theory.
Yeah. And when that happened, we're there. So now all of a sudden, I'm positioning my company, who is doing good reviews, into a place where they can be on the same side as my customer against the vendor who actually ended up getting breached because they said they did something. We looked at all the audits. The audits made it look like they did something, but they didn't. Somebody missed it. Whatever it was, didn't matter. I was trusting that they were going to do this. And I want to make sure that we're not indemnifying each other inappropriately for this. So
right.
They're held accountable.
So, counter argument to that. Scratch out that it's common for vendor risk assessments today, to scratch it out. And you've contractually obligated them to follow all the security that you expected them to do. You can contractually obligate, you're not really measuring into that. They're still at breach, into there. Whether you measure them one thing or not, whether they supplied a compliance SOC 2, whether they filled out a questionnaire and answered all yes, they're still contractually obligated. They still drop the ball, into that.
Right. But my argument against that is, if I didn't do a review of what they told me, then I'm probably, by my customer, more on the side of, you just went and hired somebody, they agreed to everything, but you didn't even look to make sure. You didn't even do the background check. You didn't even do the look.
Trust but verify.
You're as much at fault, and I'm trying to take the company that promised the customer we'd protect their data and be on their side. I want to sit on the same side of the table as them by saying I did as much as I could to look at that company that I'm going to, before I sent your data to them, I looked at it as much as I could, and I didn't ask them to say yes and have them sign the contract. And so because I can say I did those things, I'm hoping to position myself on the right side of this whole conversation.
Again, it comes down to CYA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I never said it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I hate things just for CYA purposes, into that.
Yeah.
So,
but we're a very, we may not barter, but we're a very litigious society.
We are.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, again, third-party risk management. It's not going anywhere. It's,
we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's obligated everywhere, up and down. I'm just looking at it as I think you should actually put more focus on responding to a vendor actually mishandling data one way or another, breach or otherwise, and actually focus more on the resilience of your vendors, not necessarily the security, which is kind of incorporated, but I think it paints a little bit bigger picture. So if you have a high criticality of a vendor that you rely on for payroll, for data storage, for whatever it is, you need to have some assurances that you can get at that data, maybe have an alternate vendor in play, whatever that is, because they could get hit by ransomware and not be there tomorrow.
Right.
With that, we've seen that with Change Healthcare.
Yeah.
Into that of the high. A bunch of places had high reliance. I showed the lens onto that. That I think there was probably too much reliance.
Yeah, concentration risk was
exactly
very high.
So, and just kind of treat security as part of that. But again, if you're getting a SOC 2 every single year, or they're answering a questionnaire and it's one of their salespeople just going down and saying yes to you every single year, that's just busy work.
Right.
Outside of the CYA, outside of being regulatory and contractually compliant to do that stuff, again, I'd rather prepare for, the worst, contractually obligate them, force them to carry insurance, name me as a claimant onto it, type of thing. And then deal with the situation when it arises, and use bigger players. I'm not going to potentially use a 3-person company. I say that as a, small company.
As a one-person company. Yeah.
Exactly. But, if I'm a, Fortune 50 bank, that's not a thing. I was working with one big software provider. They paid 3 guys that apparently their address went to a Chinese restaurant and everything. And I forget what the core product was, but they use it for QR generation or something like that. They use this in their core product, and they just disappeared.
Yeah.
Right. And they didn't have the source code, anything like that. And they're it's going to cost us 6 figures to replace this, And again, that's too much of a reliance onto that. It wasn't a security issue that, into there. That's a reliance issue.
But there's truth to that, though, what you just said. When Microsoft has a bad day, most companies have a bad day that same day.
The CrowdStrike thing.
Oracle, CrowdStrike.
Or AWS, when the regions go down.
And frankly, from a defensibility perspective, it's kind of like the old adage, no one gets fired for using Deloitte or no one gets fired for using PwC. It's kind of if Microsoft goes down, it's look, man, it's easy to show that to the board or litigate. Regulators don't come after you because Azure was down and
it's nearly an act of God, right?
Right. It's about as close to it, right? And there is this weird, I think, unspoken safety in using very big providers for those types of things. Because, if it goes down or they have a security breach or something, it's not everyone's kind of shrugging at the same time.
Back to what you said earlier. Yeah.
Reasonable person.
Not only that, but if you look at your peers, you're going to be judged to the same level your peers are judged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Another argument I would give, especially measuring really big people, AWS, for example. They're probably the most audited company in the world. Maybe Microsoft. They're
one of for
top
sure.
tier ones that they get, hundreds of certifications a year. Can you imagine their compliance team and working on that? It's crazy. Anyways, let's say you reviewed something and had an issue. Do you think AWS cares?
It's funny. I was reviewing a contract for a big, well-known vendor today, and you go to their website and they're our MSA, you can find it on our website. It's yeah, I'll review it, but it was for the same reason we talked about before, to see if internally we needed to theoretically adjust or mitigate any of our typical controls, because the chances of us getting them to change how they do things for all their other giant customers, not going to happen. No. So, I fully agree.
Yeah, so it's okay, I get it. And they get all the certifications and all that stuff, and you can download them. That's great, type of thing. But they're all going to be compliant,
Right.
They have a track record of doing that. And you're just doing busy work,
Right. You had a lot of click-throughs. You're not going to get a whole lot of ground moved on trying to do that. But I did work for a company that was able to get Adobe to change some terms in order to favor the buying company.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Adobe's gone downhill though. So
ever since they signed that contract.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's funny. All right, we good?
Great.
That? Yeah. We have one more topic here, huh? Is that the next one here? Which one are we talking about?
Well, we skipped over the one that I thought you were interested in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you want to hit that one.
So, no, I think we're good with that. So, Department of War. or defense or war?
Which
one do you guys like better?
I don't like change, so
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I like staying with
That's
what
true.
it was. But it's
I get that.
I'm always a fan of the throwback jerseys.
yeah.
So
But this document's labeled Department of War.
Yeah, the retro jerseys, you know,
Right.
and everything.
yeah,
Part of the document's labeled Department of War, but then you look at the sub documents that you can link from, and
Yeah.
they still say DoD on them. So.
Gotcha. Well, let's introduce it, into this. Joe, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So, Department of War announces a new cybersecurity risk management construct, which is essentially a new way for taking a look at what the military should be doing in the field when they're doing risk assessments. And it's supposed to be better because it's called the Cybersecurity Risk Management Construct, which is kind of just a weird name in itself, right?
Right.
But it's supposed to be better because the old system used static checklists and manual reviews, and were supposed to be slower, and they couldn't keep up with the new fast changing cyber threats. So, but high level take on it, nothing seemed really new or groundbreaking in this. There's been some of these best practices that they're saying they're doing. I think the civilian world's been doing cybersecurity things like this for years.
right.
So they're not really inventing anything new, but what they're doing is institutionalizing them and enforcing them in a way that makes them work faster, maybe more unified and tailored to military needs. So that's high level. One of you guys want to take what the main phrases are?
The phases? Yeah. So they implemented 5 phases to this: design, build, test, onboard, and operations. I know I told you guys, like, what first came to mind was the waterfall.
Absolutely right. Yep.
It looks like a lot new waterfall.
Design, build, test, just screams like the waterfall methodology and everything. And then activate, and then operational is then, the wheels. Like, okay, now it's in motion, type of thing.
And then there's like 10 concepts that are supposed to flow throughout, right?
Yeah, and they actually mapped it to the risk management framework, the RMF, with some of the steps into there.
Right.
Really, it's the first one, design, is prepare, categorize, and select, and the other ones it's single steps, with each of those and everything. I guess, like. Same with you, Joe. I wasn't very impressed looking at this. Like, it seems pretty rudimentary. I guess the thing that I would want to know, and obviously I would probably never know, is why was the old way insufficient, into this? And how is this addressing those gaps? Because, anytime you're doing a root cause analysis of like, hey, insufficiencies, we're going to optimize this, we're going to get it to move faster, but better quality out of it, whatever it is, you're first identifying what's not working,
of course.
And then you're saying, okay, let's put some steps in to make it go faster, but be better quality, whatever that is. And why is this solving that? You know, because we look at this and we're like, this is just doing something.
Yeah, this is doing the things we've been
this
doing.
is just like, yes, you think about it, you then build it, then you test it. It's like, we're like, how else would you do this?
Yeah. Well, and one thing I didn't say is this actually was published yesterday. So, and today's the 25th of September. So it was published yesterday.
Yeah.
And a few of the things that I found when I was just reading about it and trying to read what other people were saying about it is, how is this being enforced and scaled across the military? So what's different about it? Number one, I came up with I found 5 things. One is mandated integration. They're making these practices mandatory across all departments of defense systems and not just recommended. So that's one of the things I realize, or I think that is a little bit different.
Okay.
Unified framework is supposed to have, number 2, a unified framework. It's supposed to replace a fragmented, slow approval process with a single streamlined model. So it's hoping to get approvals faster for things that used to take a lot more bureaucracy. 3, mission-driven focus. So unlike civilian frameworks that focus on compliance and business risk, this is built around operational survivability.
I do see that.
And so it's to keep systems running during attacks. So that's something that I don't have to do a whole lot of.
Like my vendor risk management, it should be operational survivability. Resilience.
Yeah.
Resilience,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, because a lot of not a lot of my customers are actually having missiles shot at them, but I don't know about yours.
But it's about keeping the lights on.
Yes, absolutely. And number 4 is reciprocity and adherence. So it formalizes reuse of security assessments, which reduces duplication, speeds up deployment. So that's another thing they're trying to go for. And number 5 was automation at scale. They're looking for pushing to use more automated tools across thousands of systems, which is a major shift for the DoD.
Right.
So those are the things I was able to find as to why, what I'm hoping when this thing gets put in place, it's going to be useful.
So it's not really the design of the pillars, it's the mandates that's coming behind it.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I get that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the reasons behind it, I think, make a lot of sense. And some of the stuff like survivability and reuse, I actually do see in the framework itself. I did spend a little bit of time with it today, though, and I will say, I don't know that it, to me personally, and I'm not an expert in risk management and theater of war capabilities, right? But I've done a lot of risk management. I don't know that the flow hangs together particularly well for me. Like when I read through it, I had a handful of, I think, questions and what felt like, without additional explanation, because like it should be known for people who haven't looked at this, there's like basically a very short website blurb and then like 2 PDFs, neither of which have a ton of words on them. They're 1-page PDFs each. So, but I would say I found some like logical inconsistencies, some redundancies, frankly, just some typos as well. And so it did feel to me like this was 3/4 baked maybe, as opposed to fully baked. But
I mean, there shouldn't be typos anywhere in here.
well, in both PDFs, there's typos.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a thing. You sure it wasn't like the UK version where they had S's disease?
Yeah, because I'm hoping our military is using the UK version.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
They stole it from another country. They're like, this is ours now.
No, it's
no, I'm kidding.
It's stuff where like they put the space in the wrong place between 2 words, or like capitalization is like clearly off, or like a word is duplicated. I think on the second PDF that's talking about the 10 capabilities, just one example, and this is not like the biggest deal in the world, but like the first word of one of those descriptions, which are all short, they're like 1 or 2 sentences, the first word is duplicated. And so
that's ironic.
Right. I just I don't know what level of scrutiny this has really had. And I mean, you guys know, whenever you see little things like that, it puts you in the mindset of, oh, are there even bigger things? And again, I'll say I saw some redundancies and some logical maybe flow, like challenges with the flow of activities that I go, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if that gets adjusted in the future.
Well, when it's supposed to be a document or a concept in order to improve quality, and then you're seeing these, you got to. So it's a DevSecOps strategic tenet is the one that says they're going to integrate security and automation through
That's really integrated.
They're really integrating that stuff.
Maybe they mean it. I don't know. Maybe it's my bad.
We're going to integrate the integration.
Right.
I don't know. But one of the things I was, because you mentioned this kind of on our Signal channel before, and by the way, our Signal channel is fully sanctioned. We're not doing anything, no top secret stuff going on across our
even
Signal
though we
thread.
delete it after 5 minutes of that.
Oh yeah, we always.
But I thought it's backed up to your iCloud.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I hope not. Anyway, so what is the agile versus waterfall approach? And so when I was looking at this a little bit, and of course I threw some of this stuff into AI and told it, tell me about this. What's your thought on it? And then I can kind of get my head around it a little bit. And it classified as a hybrid. It keeps the structural rigor of waterfall, which is needed for defense systems, but adds agile speed, automation, and adaptability to handle modern cyber threats. So it's not strictly waterfall or agile, but tries to lean into the agile principles in a few ways. So,
and so they're basically arguing that because phase 3 and phase 5 has a assess and remediate wheel, that's agile.
Yeah. It's weird though, right? Because like at the end of the day, what a lot of this stuff is intended to get at is, does someone have authorization to operate, right? An ATO,
Yeah.
right? So I can appreciate some elements like a pragmatism there. Like, oh, we have a bunch of people in the field and they're using this technology and it's an active war zone. And so, oh, what? Okay, you found a security issue and then you're going to revoke authorization to operate. Okay, now what? Like, so there are some iterative elements there, I think, that make a lot of sense to me. But by the same token, like exactly what you said, like is it truly like iterative innate? Like, are you actually iterating on the design live? Like when?
No, that's on testing.
So
the iteration. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things, so I got 2 comments here. One of the things that I always hate reading through stuff on onboarding, next gen CSSP risk management performance risk reviews. Like, why are you calling it next gen? Like, come on. Like, seriously.
Well,
like,
I didn't say this.
Word at it.
I didn't say this to you before, but there might be some Chat GPT like elements in some of the descriptions of the things on this PDF.
So you're basically saying an intern made this. Is that what?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So
yeah, but it instantly drops a bar of respect if I see like next gen assessment, or something like that. I'm like, okay.
I could see this bearing out into something like that's potentially valuable and achieves the purposes. But I think it might need a little more time to bake.
Yeah. Maybe there's 2 gens. And the first one has to review it, and the next gen has to do it too.
Gen.
Oh, and that's why you iterate.
Yeah. Iterate. The other thing, like, because, they kind of map this to RMF and everything, I mean, you guys know, like, devil's in the details on how you actually, like, perform this. Is this all a qualitative assessment, based on this? Like, are they, like, putting critical, high, medium, low, and that's, like, how this is going through? Like...
Well, I had a similar question on the reusability stuff. So that phase, I forget if it's 4 or 5, but towards the end of it, they talk quite a bit about like reusing and sharing and all this stuff.
Operational repeatable playbook to manage real-time risk.
So like, well, some of that, but even like, it might be the very last bit or maybe right after that. But there's a lot of stuff around, reusing assessments that have been done by others. And I think there's a lot of value to that if done right. But I also think you guys will probably agree, there's a lot of human nature that'll try to take the easy road on assessing some of these stuff, particularly if you're being pressured to do things quickly and so on and so forth. And so you go, this new system's just like this other old system. We're just going to use the risk assessment on this other old system, right? So I'll be pretty interested in understanding, like, well, what are the guardrails around allowing reuse versus not allowing reuse? And if that's not fairly prescriptive, I don't know how you get away with it in a way that's useful and not destructive.
Yeah. The other thing I think is crazy in here, I don't know if you guys caught it, in the test phase, they call out penetration testing, but only for high-risk systems.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's like, why would you share that? Like, I get it. You can't pen test everything, but... you're putting it right into the like public available documents is like, and as everybody knows, like you pen test low risk systems and you can find some juicy stuff of people that overlooked, Well,
the whole point of CMMC was like to a large extent, like, oh, there's stuff that typically you don't think of as particularly scary. Yeah. Well, you should still secure it because of things like inference attacks or all those things. Like this is an analogy to that. Like, well, I don't know, someone's watch might not be considered like NTP might not be the high risk system, but
file share,
right?
Thinking like, file share is not that size. So, but surprise, somebody stored a password Excel database, or something like that.
Right.
It's like, well, now it's high risk,
Right.
Or they have Social Security or whatever it is. Obviously this is in DoD or DOW, type of stuff. But you look at criticality of systems, and oftentimes they're labeled wrong. Into that. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I think expressing that, what they're going to be doing into this is definitely a mistake.
Well, and you could have just said security testing as applicable or whatever.
Yes, or just security testing.
Yeah.
And then your actual operational documents
Right.
classifies the risk and the amount that you're doing to that and everything. So
I think I like the intent. I can appreciate some of the objectives. Yeah, I don't know if it's quite ready.
Well, maybe we'll have to keep an eye on this and then see how it's being used and see what kind of stuff's coming out of it. Maybe report on this in a couple future episodes.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question. Is NIST going to adopt anything from this?
My guess is no, because I think it's relying a lot on what the public domain is already doing.
I don't want to get terribly political, but I mean, how's funding going to work? Is there going to be expectations? Is there going to be pressure?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's probably a lot. I could see it going. Frankly, I could see it going either way, depending on how the narrative evolves.
Yeah, I would guess without an executive order of a mandate, type of thing. And then typically those come with funding,
Sure.
I don't think NIST is doing anything by themselves, because they're already citing RMF. And honestly, I'm not crazy about the structure of this format. So I think NIST, they have their own body. So they're going to make their own decisions absent of whatever the Department of War is going to be doing, into that.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, I'll give them kudos that they're doing something to make something better.
Yes.
And maybe they're not quite to the point where we're not making a little bit of fun of some of the things here. But hopefully it does improve stuff. Hopefully it saves money. Hopefully it makes things a little bit more efficient.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that they get the intent they're trying to out of it.
Yeah, I agreed with that.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, the intent is to make better decisioning, out of this, so.
And faster.
And faster, yep. So,
Cool.
Great. All done? Any last comments here?
Well, I just signed the contract for the BSides casino for next year. So
All right.
just a little planning is starting to go.
What does the check do? Not till closer.
What's that? Oh, the check. No, the first of the deposits is due.
There's
now.
a couple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we had to.
Does your arm get tired writing all those zeros?
Yeah. No, because John Ziola handles it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
I signed the contracts and he pays the bills. So
And he's very
I love
strong,
this.
so his arm doesn't get
Yeah,
tired.
no, did you see those things? Holy cow. Anyway, yep, so planning is underway, and I think Rick and I have been working a little bit with our coordinating team on getting some sponsorship stuff out. So
Nice.
we'll hopefully have the sponsorship stuff out. So if you're maybe by the time, well, probably not by the time that this is released, but shortly after, we expect to be able to get some initial sponsorship going, and want to publish that. I think we're gonna probably release the sponsorship stuff. Let some folks take a look at it, at the packages, get what they want, because there's a few sponsorship levels that only have quantity one. And come with some pretty cool perks. And so if you can get that, great. And the next thing that'll happen is once that initial stuff dies down, if your favorite vendor or favorite sponsor of BSides is listening and they're getting ready, we'll probably try to get some end of year sale if you have money that you can use for some of this stuff. So goal first month, maybe it'll all just be the price it is, and then potentially doing a little bit of a discount for any end of year stuff. So if you can use budget and they can motivate you to do that, make the investment sooner, great. And then come closer to cutoff date, it'll go back to normal price. And I'll tell you, if it's this experience from this last year, there were a lot of sponsors who were coming out of the woodwork, and that's why all the tables got done.
Right.
And I think they all decided they're going to try to go after it sooner. So,
well, and it
Did
makes
you
sense.
have like a battle arena at the end of the conference? Like two people were fighting for the number one spot.
that'd be fun.
Verbal, type of thing.
That would be good.
Do a whole
No.
cage match, two vendors
That's
enter, one vendor leaves.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not unreasonable to think about stuff like that a little bit, because I did a little bit of informal research on this actually, and of the BSides in the world, Pittsburgh's is like easily top 10. I think like tied for 5 in terms of like attendance and how well respected and level of formality and cultural impact that it has. There are not many others like it. And so, it's not surprising that sponsors want to be seen there. It's cool.
Yeah.
I'll do a little more.
All right. And the other thing I wanted to mention as I'm dishing out important bottles, you're good, is we will be at TRISS.
Oh, yeah.
TRISS is coming up at the end of October as a conference. The camera's not coming to me, but that's all right. There we go. We'll be at the TRISS event. We'll actually have a booth. We're also sponsoring the after party into that, so come join us after the conference. I think we're going to that same brewery.
Was it Helltown last time?
Helltown, yeah, and everything. But there'll be announcements and all that stuff. But please come by, say hi. The next time we record, it'll probably be post that conference. So this is your one notice, to go sign up for that. Another thing, too, that we just finished recording this week. There's a handful of actual speakers that I've been talking to this week here.
Oh, great.
That we recorded and got a little bit of great information about their talks, some of the information with that. And there's some good talks that are coming. And we're going to be releasing that over our YouTube channel. And we're also going to be doing some LinkedIn shorts and all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out. And yeah, it should be a good time.
TRISS, October 29th.
29th. Yep.
At the David L. Lawrence Convention Center downtown.
Yeah. So buy tickets for that and come say hi.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Well, all good?
All good.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
See ya.